Hi guys, today we're making puff pastry from scratch and we're going to make some apricot cheese Danishes. Here is the ingredients list if you'd like to take a screenshot. We're going to start off with our 2 cups of butter, which is usually 4 sticks, and we're going to wrap that in plastic and then we're going to pound it down until it's about a little less than a ½ inch thick. You want it to look something like this, and I just used my rolling pin to do this. Once you've done that, stick it in the fridge. Now we're going to get our pastry ready, and you're going to need 5 cups of flour. Now this recipe is going to make a lot of pastries depending on how big you make them. If you have any extra pastry dough left, you can stick it in the freezer and it'll last quite a long time. If you're using salted butter, you're going to want to use 1½ teaspoons of salt in this mix. If you're using unsalted butter, you're going to add a whole nother teaspoon, so that'll be 2½ teaspoons for unsalted butter. I'm using my stand mixer. You don't have to use a stand mixer if you don't like. And I've got the dough hook attachment on there, and I'm just mixing the salt with the flour, and then I'm going to add my 2 cups of cold water. If you find that your dough is too dry, you can add a little bit more water. You just want to add enough to where the dough comes together and it's workable. Once your dough has come together, we're just going to roll this out into about a ½ inch thick as well. The dough is going to be quite dense and a little difficult to work with because it is going to be fairly stiff. We're going to roll this out into a long rectangle, and then we're going to grab our disc of butter and put it in the middle and fold the dough over, and you could stretch it out to make it fit. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay if it's a little misshapen. And then we're going to roll this out. Again, this is going to be pretty tough, so you may have to do a little teeny bit of pounding to get that butter workable because it is cold. But you're going to keep rolling this out until you have another long rectangle, and then we're going to fold it again. Like before, we're going to fold it in thirds. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to make a difference if you have to tuck in some ends like I'm doing here. It's not going to make a difference in the end. So once you've done this, you're going to stick this in some plastic wrap and refrigerate it for about 20 to 30 minutes. After about 30 minutes, you're going to take it out of the fridge and we're going to repeat that last step. We're going to fold this twice into thirds. So again, roll it out into a nice long rectangle. Then fold it into thirds again, and then roll it out again into another rectangle. Now we're going to wrap this up again and put it in the refrigerator for another 20 to 30 minutes. Now we're on our last fold, and it's time to preheat the oven at 400 degrees. It needs to be at least 400 degrees for you to get a nice puff out of your pastry. So, like we did before, we're going to roll this out, fold it into thirds, and roll it out one last time. This process is really important because this is how you're going to get those really thin, flaky layers that we love so much in a Danish. If you skip out on any of these folds, your layers are going to be too thick and you're going to end up with a really dense, doughy Danish. Now it's time to roll this out for the last time, but before I do that, I'm going to refrigerate it for a while because I want to make my filling first. For the cheese filling, you're going to need 8 ounces of cream cheese, and I'm putting this in my stand mixer so I can whip it nice and smooth. We're going to need a 1/4 cup of sugar, and about a teaspoon of vanilla. You can add a little bit more if you want more vanilla flavor. I'm using Mexican vanilla extract. Whip that up until it's nice and smooth and creamy. You don't want any sugar texture in there, so make sure you taste it. We're also going to need a can of apricot preserve. I'm just using the apricot halves. I like apricot preserve. I think it tastes really good, so that's what I'm using. Now we're ready for the puff pastry, and I'm just going to cut this in half so you can see the layers that are inside there. And then now's your chance to roll this out and freeze half of it if you want to. I'm going to be using both halves though because I have 3 kids. So I've gone ahead and rolled out to about 1/4 inch thick, and I've made 4-inch squares. And now I'm just going to do a basic flower design for my Danishes. Also, I should mention I've only rolled out half of the dough, the other half is in the fridge. And this is our cream cheese filling that I've added a small dollop to in the center. Don't worry if a little bit of that cheese filling oozes out, you can wipe it out if you need to. And then I just take a piece of the apricot and I just plop it right on top. Now we're going to do an egg wash on just the pastry part. And if you don't do this, it's not a big deal. You're just going to have a pale pastry, but the egg wash adds a lot of color. This is going to end up secreting a lot of extra butter, so I like to line my cookie sheet with parchment paper before I bake it. Now I'm just making a regular turnover, and I just like to make these little slits, and they're kind of off center from each other, and this will come apart and it'll look really, really cool. There are actually lattice cutters that you can use. They're like roller cutters to do this instead of doing it by hand, but since I'm only making a few, I don't mind doing it. If I were making a lot though, I would definitely use that, and it's really great for pies too. If you're interested in that tool, I will link it in the description. I'm using another 4-inch square for the base of this turnover, and I'm actually going to put a nice dollop of the cream cheese filling onto the square and then a whole half apricot on top of that, and then we'll put our lattice piece over top. I'm also using some of the egg wash as glue so that the top can stick to the bottom well. Make sure to press the edges together so that this doesn't come apart in the oven. Canned apricots bake really, really well, so they're perfect for this. Another way to make these is by using some cupcake liners and a cupcake pan, and you just put the pastry in and fill it up with whatever you like. You can even make some savory dishes like some chicken pot pie with this, or quiche is really great this way. If you want to step up your breakfast, you can add scrambled eggs and bacon and sausage to these cups, and it's amazing. To these, I'm just adding some sprinkles of sugar, pink sugar, because why not? You're going to bake these until they're a nice golden brown and puffy. We like to add some powdered sugar on top. You can definitely add like a coarse sugar before you bake these, and that works really well as well. You can easily change up this recipe with different types of preserves. Raspberries and strawberries and any type of fresh fruit works really well for these. So experiment a little bit and let me know how it works out for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you try this recipe, and we'll see you tomorrow.